Bitch, you let me on my own. Ay, I took that dirty now.
Peace. What's good, guys? How's it going? Let's talk about NXT for December the 27th, 2022. The final NXT of the year. This is a very decent episode of NXT. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, we kicked the show off with the Creed brothers. They're backstage. And they said that they were full from Christmas dinner, but they're hoping that in this year is watching while Julius takes on JD McDonough. JD McDonough, he's backstage as well, and he said he's glad that the holidays are over so he can inflict more pain on the Creeds. That leads us into our first match tonight. Julius Creed versus JD McDonough. Julius wins via the sliding clothesline. I love it. Julius, in my opinion, he's improved a lot tremendously. The kid is a star. The kid is a fucking star. 2023 is going to be the year of the Creeds again. I wouldn't be shocked if they're on the main roster. They make a couple of appearances on the main roster in 2023. I hope they do. JD McDonough, same thing. I think it's time for him to move on to the main roster. He's done all he can do in NXT. He really has. There's nothing else they can do with him in NXT. There's just not. Him losing straight to both the Creed brothers in back-to-back weeks, that's something. So the Creeds, they stand tall post-match, but in the year they come out, they're on the ring apron, Veer, Mahan, and Sangha. So Veer and Sangha say that now that Julius has proven himself, they're ready to face the Creeds. So Indus says they're going to get their respect in 2 weeks at New Year's Evil when they destroy both the Creeds. Okay. Which I figured that was going to happen anyway, which actually makes sense. I'm hoping that this turns into a really solid feud and not just a one and done type of tag match and then we move on. No, I want a feud between these two teams. I really do. Moving on. So Mackenzie Mitchell, she's backstage with Stax and Tony D. So she asked them about tonight's title match against Wes Lee. So Tony D says that he's feeling great. He says he's on the last NXT of 2022. He will get his first title other than the title of the Dawn. So Tony says he's been waiting for this for a long time. Lee took a few months off of his career and says that he's going to hit Lee where it hurts. So Mackenzie, she also mentions Dijak and being a possible threat. So Tony dismisses the idea. And Stack says he took care of that issue last week. Stack says he laid down the law in their closed-door meeting. So let's say Dijak won't be an issue tonight, and the Dawn will win the gold. And so Stack, he excuses them and says Tony D has a title to win. So Joe Gacy and Schism, they're out. They're backstage. Gacy says they're aware of their lifestyle is intimidating to other groups in NXT, and anyone who has crossed their paths in 2022 has felt their mercy, and they've not been treated favorably. So the bald guy, Fowler, he says Eno Fan Blade and Odyssey Jones says that the Schism can see their emotional damage they've instilled. They felt their emotional state and controlling their actions did not serve them. It just digs deeper the capability of anguish, and that they try and repair. that was added by Reed, the guy with the hair. So Reigns says that their attempts to fill the voids of temporary solutions lead to long-term insecurities, while the schism is the definition of living your best life. Fowler says they wear a mask of fake happiness, but the schism sees through the charades. As real as Gacy is supposed to be fruitful and multiplied and not consumed and discarded for social clout. Gacy says they do have some redeeming qualities like loyalty, but that Eno, Faye, and the crew must continue to nurture that. Gacy says tonight the schism will show them that above all else, togetherness is what binds them and allows them to grow beyond their individual limits because they're four roots, one tree. So I've been digging Schism as of late. I love Schism. They're honestly one of my favorite factions in NXT. So that leads us into our next match, Wendy Choo versus Cora Jade. And surprisingly, Wendy Choo wins here via a splash. I was shocked. I don't know why Cora Jade lost here. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what Shawn Michaels was thinking on that. That was not a really good booking decision. Cora Jade should have easily won this because I don't know where Wendy Choo goes from here. I don't. You know, to me, she doesn't have any redeeming qualities. Like, she's not going to be facing Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship. I mean, what else are they going to do? Are they going to do one more match or what? I mean, Cora Jade needs to win. Cora Jade should have won this match, and it was a travesty that she didn't win. So Ike Manjiro, he's backstage. He says that without his jacket, he's fired up to face Scripps. Jiro says his jacket is who he is and what makes him, what makes him number one. Without the jacket, he's just Jiro, not Eichmann. So he goes on and says tonight he'll beat Scripps and take back what's his. And tonight everyone will smile. And of course they didn't because he lost. Moving on. So Briggs and Jensen, they're backstage typing up Fallon Henley for the Battle of the Bar against Kiana James. So Jensen is obsessed with James, and there's some tension between the stablemates over who's actually going to be supporting tonight. Ike Manjiro versus Scripps. So Scripps wins via his big seated plancha for the win. And then post-match, Scripps throws Jiro's jacket over him and he dips out. I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on here? I still don't understand what's the purpose of Scripps. I don't know what they're doing with Scripps. But him feuding with Ike Manjiro, it's not a good look. That's just me. Moving on. So, we get a really cool nightclub vignette for Oro Mensah. I dig it. So he said he's in the middle of the action, the social phenomenon, because the nightlife maximizes all senses. When the music is hitting right, it's not about the work week, or your problems or stress. It's about that moment. That interactive moment that can only be duplicated in the ring. And Mensah says he's bringing that vibe to NXT. I can dig it. That's dope. I like that. We'll see where it goes. So, I'm digging what they're doing with Oro Mensah. Hopefully we get maybe like one more week of another vignette from him, another nightclub vignette, and then like maybe at New Year's Evil he makes his NXT re-debut. Alba Fire. So she's cutting a backstage promo backstage, and she says she has a warning for Isla Dawn. Fire says Dawn's mystical darkness has pushed her to her breaking point. Dawn tried to ruin her vision and break her hand, but she's awakened with an unfamiliar fire which has saved Fire's soul. Fire says her ancestors are more powerful than the darkness of Dawn's spirits. She says we'll see who's laughing last, because next week it'll be anything goes. And Fire also says this is going to be an extreme resolution, not just to end the year, but to end Aladon as well. Okay. Lash Legend versus Lyra Valkyria. So my girl Lyra is back. And she wins via the frog splash. But she did a really fucking awesome roundhouse kick. That should have been the finish right there. She beats Lash Legend. I like what they're doing with Lyra. I really do. I really do think that roundhouse should be her finish and not the frog splash. That's just me. And it's kind of cool to see Lash Legend back on TV. It's been about, a month and a half, 2 months since we've seen her. Moving on. Now, I really enjoyed this segment right here with Toxic Attraction. I loved it. This was really, really solid right here. So, they say 2022 was the year of Toxic Attraction. They built an empire, the greatest women's group in NXT and in WWE history. They say name another faction that, despite their ultimate success, didn't experience a heartbreaking loss, as we see Roxanne Perez winning the NXT Women's title. But no mention of so they don't even mention Mandy Rose, which is good. They say even at their lowest, the eyes of the world have never shifted from the attraction of NXT. People are wondering what's next, but they promise to rebuild, reconstruct, and return to glory. But it'll start with taking down the woman that took down their empire. And so we see a little vignette of Roxanne Perez. And I love this. This is great. This is what needs to happen. And I love the fact that it's not just one of them wanting to go after Perez. It's actually both of them. So this is great. This is what needed to happen. And I can't wait to see what happens next. This is tremendous. This is great. I love this right here. I do. So, Mackenzie Mitchell, she's backstage with Bron Breakker. She asked about Grayson Waller's steel plate trap last week. Bron admits that he fell for Waller's trap. He's all recovered now, and he's not in the mood for games, so he's going to the ring to call out Waller for a fight tonight. So Mackenzie hates to break the news to Bron, but says that he's not here. She says Waller left a video for Bron. So Waller, he's back at home in Sydney, Australia. He's all smiles. Waller bets that Bron is still pissed about being embarrassed last week. He can't believe Bron fell for that. Grayson praises Bron as being the most major man in NXT. He's big, strong, and fast, and hits harder than the others. But as good as Bron is, Waller is smarter. Waller says as much as he'd love to be there to face off with Bron, fortunately for Bron, he had to come home. What better place to prepare for homecoming than the most beautiful place on earth, Sydney, Australia. So we see some sights of Sydney, which looks really dope. So Waller's walking around on the beach and everything else. He tells the drink to Bron and says Bron isn't enjoying the video. Waller says Australia has the best athletes in the world, and he went back home to take care of his mind and body. Then he'll take care of Bron in New Year's Evil, bring the title home to Australia. Waller goes on about how he gave up everything in Australia to sacrifice and let the world know who he is, superstar he is, and that it will be worth it when he becomes NXT champion at New Year's Evil. Waller says, don't worry, because he'll be at NXT next week for a contract signing on a very special edition of the Grayson Waller Effect. So Waller ends the video by laughing, and then Bron, he goes ape shit and starts slamming the TV, And he grabs his belt and dips out. I'm like, damn, this is pretty good shit right here. So I'm digging this. I'm digging it. Next, Schism versus Idris NFA and Malik Blade and Odyssey Jones. Schism wins. So towards the end of the match, they take out Odyssey Jones with like 3 suicide dives. And then Schism, they do their little double knees to take out Blade. And then they also do a double Doomsday device, which was great. That was a really cool spot right there on both Blade and Inoue. So then the finishing sequence, like I said before, was the double knees by Schism, and then Gacy wins via the upside down. So I like that. I dug it. Also, what's her name? Oh yeah, Ava Raine. She got in Booker T's face on commentary, and she did the whole 4 roots, 1 tree. Booker T's like, what the hell's going on here? So I love that. That was pretty good shit right there. So Kiana James, she's backstage, walking around. No, Fallon Henley is walking around with Briggs and Jensen. And Fallon Henley, then Kiana James is by herself. So Trick and Mello, they were on the show, which is great. So Trick, he's going to face Axiom next week. And he said, while he can fly and wrestle, he can't beat Trick. And Trick will send him to Comic-Con with a size 15. So that was pretty cool. I'm thinking about going to Comic-Con next year. Possibly. Hayes says 2023 is the year he becomes NXT champion, which I do believe. This one person stands in his way, that being Apollo Crews. And he says Crews can move or be moved. I love that. Next, Fallon Henley versus Kiana James, fight for the bar. Fallon Henley wins in a very short match. It lasted about, I think 7 minutes. But it came at the expense of James, her ankle buckling or whatever, and that allowed Fallon to do the little Shining Wizard for the 1, 2, 3. So she keeps the bar. The feud is essentially over. I don't know what they're going to do with James going forward, but Kiana James has really improved a lot this year. Fallon Henley, same thing. She's growing on me as well. So I do like that. But the feud came to an end rather quickly. This is only been going on for about 3 or 4 weeks, I think. So Briggs and Jensen, they're having a couple words, and Jensen, he shows concern for James. So Henley, she celebrates in the corner, and then James looks on from ringside, and she's not happy. So I don't know what they're gonna do with this, but the feud has to be over. Essentially, it's over with now. Mackenzie, so she's interviewing Roxanne Perez. So she knows the honeymoon phase of her title win will wear off soon. She knows that she has to be on her game every night, or she can lose the title just as quick as she won it. Perez says the previous women in NXT champions are all future Hall of Famers. And she says she's nowhere near close to them, so she has to live up to the history of the title. This is pressure she doesn't take lightly, and she'll do anything she can do to keep the title. Okay, so I do like that. But Perez needs a better character. She needs a better character. Enough of the I'm happy to be there, I'm glad I'm champion now sob story. So, Isla Dawn, she says she's having fun with Alba Fire. and says she knows there's evil deep inside of fire, and she's reaching in and pulling it to the surface. Dawn says Fire's challenge is nothing but a part of the process, and next week this extreme resolution match will happen, but it won't be for Dawn. It'll be for Fire. And so Dawn does her little creepy laugh. So that's pretty cool. So Drew Gulak, we got the Drew Gulak Invitational. So Hank Walker with him. So Gulak welcomes us to the 2022 Drew Gulak Invitational. Gulak shows us three upcoming wrestlers behind him. Drew says he's asked Walker to be out there as an observer only. Gulak tells Walker he'll see each wrestler perform moves with him. So Lucia, he's up first, and so then he demonstrates a chicken string. So Lucha dips out after that. And Gulak says it's important to see if Lucia taps out, which he does. And then Gulak brings up another guy named Tavon Heights. So he's an amateur wrestler. And so Drew gets him into a submission, and he taps. And then Gulak talks some instruction to Walker and says it's important to let go as soon as the opponent taps. Gulak introduces Miles Bourne. So the crowd kind of popped for him a little bit. I'm guessing he's a guy on level up. I don't know. So he's stepped up in a recent couple of months. So the fans, they chant for Bond. Bond is able to take down Gulak for a second. And then Drew locks in the Dragon Sleeper. So Bourne taps, and he tightens the hold. And so Walker comes in to remind Gulak to let go. Gulak says sometimes you have to really drive it home. And he hopes that Walker's taking notes. Out comes my boy Charlie Dempsey. So Dempsey enters the ring and asks Gulak if he wants to step up to a real wrestler. Dempsey says he'll give Gulak a run for his money. Gulak says he wasn't invited to the Invitational. Walker gets in between them to prevent a fight. And so Dempsey says next week he'll make an example of Gulak's students. And Gulak says that sounds good. They'll be ready. So I can dig this. Hopefully we do see a turn, that being Gulak turning on Hank Walker and aligning himself with Charlie Dempsey. I think that would be great. That would be a very kick-ass, badass tag team. And then we go to the main event. Tony D'Angelo versus Wes Lee for the NXT North American Championship. Wes Lee wins. Towards the end of the match, Dijak gets involved. He takes out Stacks. He chokes him out. And he takes him to the back. We never see him ever again for whatever reason. And Wes Lee wins via like a handspring kick for the 1-2-3, I guess. And then we just go off the air with Wes Lee standing tall. Nothing happens. Nobody attacked Wes Lee. Nothing. So it's a very anticlimactic way to go off the air. But overall, this episode was decent. Outside of, Wes Lee ending the show. I'm really digging the Charlie Dempsey stuff. Same with Drew Gulak. It sucks that the New Day wasn't on this show. It sucks that Pretty Deadly wasn't on this show. Hopefully they'll be on next week. I'm digging what they're doing with Bron. I'm loving the mellow stuff here. I'm loving the Schism stuff. 2022 was a really decent year for NXT. A lot of good episodes happened this year. There were some duds and some downers, but for the most part, NXT was really good, And I think 2023 will be a phenomenal year for NXT. So now, thank you guys for watching. Please hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to my videos. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.